Good morning. It is time for another round of the Immaculate Grid. Let's see, August 25th, 6:43 a.m. Pacific Coast time. Don't have much to say about yesterday's grid, except very happy that I was able to knock off one more member of, excuse me, the 95 Mariners, Joey Cora. And while I could have knocked off Vince Coleman, I think the Jim Converse was a pretty good pick. Today, I don't think I'm going to have an opportunity to do that. But Orlando Mercado fits, so we'll see what he's up to these days. In any case, yeah, let's take a look at the grid. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just give commentary on me doing the grid in the morning. I had a couple of thoughts that came to me during the course of the day, and I thought I would like to add them here. So that's why I'm doing this after the fact. All right. So with the grid, I start in the middle of the grid in very familiar territory with an old favorite, Orlando Mercado. He played for Montreal and Texas. And let's see, Delino to Shields is another answer that would work there. Doug Strange, another former Mariner, works there. That would get a pretty good percentage. And I think Mike Morgan might work there as well. But I went with Orlando Mercado. And when I answered 0.007%, that percentage went up by the time I finished the puzzle, but still pretty good. All right, so for the next pick, I go to Texas, Milwaukee. I go with Darryl Hamilton. And I'm off to a good start because that gets 0.6%. So I go to finish off the Milwaukee row. So one player that I have in mind is Hank Aaron, who started in Milwaukee as a Brave. I think he went with the team to Atlanta, and then at the end of his career went back to Milwaukee, but by then they were the Brewers. So instead of using Hank Aaron in the Brave Brewer Square, I use him in the Hall of Fame Square, thinking that that might get a lower score. So I do that, and that's not bad. 9%. I think Robin Yount went for much higher as an example. Then I decide I'm going to try to do Al Dark. I'm going to try to kind of throw it way back to the 40s, basically 40s and 50s, and go with Al Dark, who was an infielder who's pretty good, came up with the Braves. And I had this memory that I saw the Pilots, Seattle Pilots, as one of the teams that he played for. And of course, the Pilots became the Brewers. But that was not true. And I have no idea where that idea came from, but it stuck with me, but it was wrong. If I were to do this again, I think I would go with Julio Franco, but this morning I wasn't like 100% sure that Franco actually played for the Brewers, but he did, so that would have worked there. I go to Atlanta and Washington. I go with Dennis Martinez. Marquise Grissom is another player that would work there. I think Martinez is probably a lower percentage though. So we go with El Presidente. And then I try to go back to the old timey players with Dazzy Vance. I remember that Dazzy Vance played for a lot of the National League teams. He played for, well, not the Cubs and not the Braves, as it turns out, but he played for the Cardinals. He played for the Pirates, the Reds. I think he played for the Phillies, and there's one other team. Oh, the Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers. But he played for neither of those teams, as it turns out. Let's see, if I were to do it again, I'd probably go with Johnny Evers, who was part of the double play combo that's mentioned in baseball's sad lexicon. And it goes like, these are the saddest possible words, tinkers to Evers a chance, trio of bear cubs and fleeter than birds, tinkers to Evers a chance. And one day I would like to put all three of those players on the same grid, and it would be like the saddest of grids. Unless you're a Cubs fan, then it would be like the most awesome of grids, maybe. But so that was a flop. So I guess I go to Texas and the Cubs, and can't remember. Oh, I went with Rafael Palmeiro. If I could find an image of the baseball card that I had of him as a Cub, as a child from the late 80s, I might put it up there. Because in that card, he's like thin as a rail. And if you were to tell me that that guy in the 1988 who was like a beanpole was going to hit 500 home runs, I wouldn't have believed you. But he bulked up afterwards, and yeah, he's in the 500 club. see, so obviously I'm going with Hall of Fame, Washington. Let's see, I went with Randy Johnson there, a big unit. At the time, I was only able to think of 3 Hall of Famers from Montreal, Washington, and that was Pedro, Randy Johnson, and Gary Carter. Vaughn Rodriguez apparently played for Washington at the end of his career. Lee Smith went through Montreal, so those would be a couple of other good answers. Tim Raines made the Hall of Fame. I didn't know that Rock made the Hall of Fame, but now I know, and I think that's great. Big Tim Raines fan. Anyways, Cubs Hall of Fame. Yeah, I was just curious how Ernie Banks would do. I mean, I figured he'd go pretty high, but Ryan Sandberg is a more recent player. I'm sure there's another player that's more recent, so I wasn't sure exactly like how far that would knock Mr. Cub down. But as it turns out, Ernie Banks was the top answer. So I think at this point he was like 35%. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, so I could have gone with Johnny Evers here too, as well, I believe, because I think he was on the list of Hall of Famers, and maybe Frank Chance as well, although I can't remember the list exactly. There were like dozens of Cubs who've made the Hall. So that was my grid, 7 and 9, and not a great rarity score, even considering that I missed 2. But yeah, it was about average, and I had some good answers there. Mercado and Hamilton were pretty good. Okay, so that was my grid. Hope your grid went well today. All right, see ya.